So, first I start. You know what an asylum seeker is, right? Well, let's start with what's the difference between like a refugee, an asylum seeker, and a migrant? Well, a migrant's someone who moves country because they want to better their life, optional, get a visa, get a job, whatever. Um, a refugee is someone who has fled a country and is settled in another country because they're being persecuted, or because there's a war, or because sometimes like some very contextual economic hardship, not poverty, but like if there's been a natural disaster and they've lost their house or something like that can qualify for like extreme poverty. Or if there's like a famine or some shit. So, and when you're in between that process, when you've left your country and arrived in another one, you're an asylum seeker. To be an asylum seeker, all you got to do is you leave the country you're in and you go to another country that has enough infrastructure to take asylum seekers. Preferably countries that are signed to the Refugee Convention, of which there are many, like, or ones that are like capable of upholding the terms of the Refugee Convention, like the UK. You have no obligation to stay in the first safe country you arrived in. If that were the case, then every decade or so, a country would have a civil war, and then the country next door to it would have to receive 8 million people, and then they would collapse as well under the weight of that many people arriving at once. It's so stupid, okay? That's why you don't want these random disproportionate burdens being placed on countries that happen to be next door to countries that are in turmoil. That's why it's in everyone's interest to just let asylum seekers move around a little bit until they find a place that works for them. Like, family reasons, language reasons, reasons for like some countries actually have labor shortages, other ones don't. So, but there's always this conversation in conservative media that deliberately misunderstands what the fuck the process is for being an asylum seeker. They keep on contrasting like the idea of a legitimate asylum seeker with an illegitimate asylum seeker. There's no such thing as an illegitimate asylum seeker. An asylum seeker is someone who is trying to get refugee status. So I could run over to fucking Australia, say that I'm being persecuted by the UK for being cute, and I would be an asylum seeker. Process wouldn't last very long. They'd be like, "Whoa, this guy's talking about shit," and then I'd get sent back here, right, and possibly fined or whatever the fuck. But I was never an illegitimate asylum seeker. That's not a thing. If you want to claim asylum in a country, all you gotta do is be in that country. That's what you go there, you claim asylum. Doesn't matter how you got there. Doesn't matter if you arrive in a plane. Doesn't matter if you arrive in someone's suitcase, on a little raft. It doesn't matter. You arrive there and you claim asylum. The problem is that many people consider this to be an illegal action. It's not really. Like, it's about as illegal as it's illegal for ambulances to break the speed limit. Like that's the kind of illegal that it is, right? And they use this to excuse themselves for either. I think recently it was they tried to give immunity to border officers who just let them drown in the English Channel. Like, it's international law to rescue someone who you find at sea, and the UK was offering immunity to people who did that, who chose not to rescue people and just let them die. So that was a bundle of joy. It hasn't seemed to have deterred anyone. People are still crossing because it turns out people who flee their countries in terror or in search of a better life are willing to risk quite a lot. And we know that because they're like crossing a channel in boats that are not suitable for crossing a channel. Like they're already risking their lives. We're kind of selecting naturally for people who are willing to risk a lot to arrive in the UK. It's not even to mention the struggles they had to go through to even arrive in like Europe in the first place. So the UK's solution to this, to the problem of a few thousand people arriving every year, that's like a very small number compared to most countries like that take refugees in Europe, is they want to send them to Rwanda. That's what we want to do now. Boris Johnson announces plans to send thousands of asylum seekers to Rwanda. Go.
Our compassion may be infinite, but our capacity to help people is not. So from today, our new migration and economic development partnership.
What do you think is cheaper? Processing an asylum seeker in the UK or sending them to Rwanda to get them processed there? What do you think is cheaper of these? Did they ask the Rwanda? Yes, they did. Yeah, they asked the Rwanda government. Yeah, they've signed an agreement. Yeah. The UK has offered, I think it's 120 million as an initial down payment. That's a very important sentence there. It's going to cost a lot more. I imagine Rwanda is not going to pay to process these people themselves. This is exactly what happened in Australia as well. They offered Nauru and Papua New Guinea to do the asylum process, but it also meant that they had to build detention centers, maintain them in countries that are not Australia. And when you looked at the cost, it was coming up to like millions of dollars per person. So, no. Anyway, this has nothing to do with economics, okay?
Will mean that anyone entering the UK illegally, as well as those who have arrived illegally since January the 1st, may now be relocated to Rwanda. This innovative approach, driven by our shared humanitarian impulse and made possible by Brexit freedoms, will provide safe and legal routes for asylum while disrupting the business model of the gangs. Because it means that economic migrants taking advantage of the asylum system will not get to stay in the UK, while those in genuine need will be properly protected, including with access to legal services on arrival in Rwanda.
I don't understand this. He says economic migrants who cheat the asylum system can't stay in the UK, but legitimate refugees will be serviced in Rwanda. Does that mean if they get accepted in Rwanda, they come back here? Is that what we're saying? So if that's... Wait. No, you see that trick there. Even if you're a legitimate refugee with a legitimate claim, you're staying in Rwanda. Anyway.
Given the opportunity to build a new life in that dynamic country, supported by the funding we are providing. The deal we've done is uncapped, and Rwanda will have the capacity to resettle tens of thousands of people in the years ahead. We're confident that our new migration partnership is fully compliant with our international legal obligations. But nevertheless, we expect this will be challenged in the courts. And if this country is seen as a soft touch for illegal migration by some of our partners, it is precisely because we have such a formidable army of politically motivated lawyers who for years have made it their business to thwart removals and frustrate the government. So I know that this system will not take effect overnight, but I promise that we will do whatever it takes to deliver this new approach.
Okay, so there's a problem here. One is definitely that the initial down payment, this is a very typical thing that they'll do, is they want to make something look as cheap as possible. So they'll call it an initial down payment. It doesn't actually cost that much to process an asylum seeker. It's like a 6-month process. They get £5 a day. They're accommodated usually in like B&Bs and council flats that are kind of like between tenants. That are places that are going to be empty anyway. Another couple couple of problems is like it's not being enforced right away, which means people at the moment are still being processed in the UK. So if we talk about push-pull factors, if you know that the UK is about to implement a policy where they will send new arrivals to Rwanda, but they're not doing it yet, what are you going to do? You're going to go to the UK as quickly as possible, and you might even forego safety. That's a warning that's come from the Border Force Union. Why they're going with this, given that opposition is currently higher than approval from a Snap YouGov poll, like 20% strongly support, 15 10 to support, 15 10 to oppose, 27 strongly opposed, 23% don't know. So it's not even to court like the public and shit. Like, I mean, I know why they're doing it, right? It's because their voters is this area. Like, you know, that's their vote, that's their base. So there is more support 50 and above and 65 plus, obviously. That's why they're doing it. They know their voters. They don't give a fuck about like the majority of people in the UK, and especially the youths, because these guys are all going Labour. These guys mostly going Labour, Liberal, Green, whatever. Now, the biggest issue that's come up with this is that Rwanda, whilst enjoying quite a lot of GDP growth, this is actually like, since 2006, this is actually really good. I think the growth rate in Rwanda has been hovering around like 6 to 8%. Like 3 is considered good, like healthy. And they're growing at like 6 to 8%. Like, it's quite high. Here's pandemic, whatever, but yeah, they're a really high performing economy. However, they are also have been under fire recently, as late as last year, for human rights abuses, including arbitrary detentions, disappearances. They had one policy which I think was, where do I have it? This is it here. This is a really bad one that they have. They were arbitrary detention of street children. Transit centers in Rwanda are governed by a 2017 law establishing the National Rehabilitation Service, which states that anyone exhibiting deviant behaviors can be held for up to 2 months without any further legal justification or oversight. In January 2020, Human Rights Watch found that the new legislation provides cover for the police to continue to round up and arbitrarily detain children in deplorable and degrading conditions in Gikondo Transit Center. So they're violating international laws like fairly hard. They've been condemned for it by multiple parties, including, where is it? Including the UK, okay? Where the fuck is it? UK. Is it here? Forgot which article it was. Damn. Yeah, the UK's International Ambassador for Human Rights, Rita French, appeared before the same body on 8th of July 2021, not even a year ago, and expressed regret that the country had so far ignored Mr. Braithwaite's first and third suggestions. The first suggestion being investigations into allegations of extrajudicial killings, deaths in custody, enforced disappearances, and torture. Third suggestion, what was that? Screen, identify, and provide support to trafficking victims, including those held in government transit centers. It's not far off of how they might also be expected to treat asylum seekers, is it? Ooh. And it's not as if they're not aware of this. This is a Tory minister speaking about it.
Why Rwanda?
Well, I think the first thing is we have to deal with this problem. We have a very good relationship with Rwanda. It's an up-and-coming economy. It's got a very good record with migrants in this particular issue, and it's an arrangement which I think suits both countries very well and provides the best opportunities for economic migrants, for those who have been in the forefront of this particular appalling problem for so long now. And I think that this arrangement is it has the potential to be a really good step forward and a really humane step forward.
But the president of Rwanda has been accused of human rights abuses on more than one occasion.
That is true, but that doesn't alter the fact that their reputation, as far as migrants are concerned, and their economic progress is phenomenal. So I don't think we want to write this off now. It's a scheme it's a start of a scheme. We want to work with the Refugee Council, other charities, try and make it work. But the fact is, at the moment, the arrangement, pretty well everybody who observes what we see on telly with the problem with the channel and the lives that have been lost, activities of the criminal gangs, which everybody accepts is not a situation we can persist with in any shape or form. This has the potential, I think, to be a really groundbreaking way forward, which provides a humane outcome for the victims in question, which is the most important priority, and also make sure that we honour what we committed to do several years ago, which you've held us to account on, which is to resolve this problem as far as the UK is concerned. So this is the beginning of a process. We have to work with the charitable sector to get it to work.
Okay.
But I think it would be wrong to write it off.
Okay,
Why
so chat. Stay with me. It could be the case that Rwanda has a record of human rights abuses, particularly against the political opponents of the president, to the extent of like torture and disappearance and all that. Also, that they've been abusing the human rights of trafficking victims, and that they've been abusing the human rights of street children. But they could be the country. They could be a country that is abusing the human rights of all those people, but are very good to refugees and asylum seekers who have come in as part of a deal with a foreign country. It could be the case. It could be the case that they make an exception for those types. Would it not be for the fact that they already did this with Israel? Israel sent asylum seekers to Rwanda from 2014 to 2017. Almost all of them left. And tried to go back and tried to go to Europe. And I can't remember where I got it from, but it's on my own Twitter. A good number of them. If you're getting from Rwanda, which is like sort of Central Africa, southern, you're going north, a lot of them will have ended up in the hands of traffickers in Libya. That's how you get to Europe. I can't imagine what is happening in the Rwandan process that is leading almost all of the 4,000 people who were sent there going through fucking Libya. This is like bang in the beginning of the Libyan civil war, by the way. That they were willing to do that is maybe not the greatest testament to Rwanda's asylum process. I'm pretty sure the president here was the same one that there is now, right? Because I have a feeling he's been there for a while. Kagame? Yeah, he's been there since the year 2000. So it's not like they've gone through like massive structural change. They scared 4,000 people who were sent over from Israel up into like towards the Mediterranean, they've come under fire for human rights abuses last year, including against trafficking victims and other, I guess, like displaced people and people in transit. And it's just like, I don't know how much more I can cover this. It's like, there are lots of arguments that you can understand where conservatives are coming from, right? Even immigration, you can understand fears about cultural changes and all that. You can understand fears about like, or concerns about gender issues and all, but like, this is such a small number of asylum seekers. And the fact that people are actually willing to just send them effectively to their deaths, right? Like this is it's going to take years. Like how long is it going to take to get processed in Rwanda and you decide to stay there in a country that's probably not, is barely being nice to its own people, let alone fucking people who were sent there from the UK. And apparently it's like pushed people who already went through the same system to end up in Libya. Like that's not a life. Given that I think most asylum arrivals in the UK are at the moment coming from Iran and Afghanistan. So, like, however long it's taken you to get from Iran or Afghanistan or Northern Africa or Sub-Saharan Africa into, like, I don't know, France, from the time it's taken you to get to France to the UK, to then going to Rwanda, and then apparently Rwanda is so fucking shit that you'll probably try to leave there as well. Like, what life is that? That's not like, they might as well be dead, right? I'm sorry. Like, you might as well just sink the boats. Like, it's the same effect. But I think that's just like, unfortunately, the point is that like immigration concerns and asylum seeker concerns are so interwoven that every time like a far right like dipshit, like even fucking Lauren Southern did this, like even though she's one of the more like careful ones when she speaks about this, she'll talk about fucking demographic change when she's talking about asylum seekers. Like there's never been enough asylum seekers arriving in Europe to change the demographics radically. Like it's not been a thing. The highest number that came in a year to Europe was what, like between 3 and 4 million? And that's the highest. I think usually it's less than 1 million. Our regular immigration rate, by contrast, is 4 million. Births that happen within the continent is around 4 million. Like these are really small numbers. And they never, it's never consistent. Like asylum seeker numbers go like this, boom, because it's like an event, right? There's a civil war, there's destabilization, there's a natural disaster. That's why it's like spikes. You're never going to get like a consistent block of refugees just arriving year after year after year after year, after year. Like there's a big number for a small period, then it just like peaks and falls really quickly. These are not like legitimate concerns. And they're concerns that are so strong that for people that like the most politically expedient thing to do is just to treat them as cruelly and like randomly as possible. Just like the best display of random cruelty, regardless of how much it costs, regardless of what it does to deter people from coming in the future. It doesn't do anything to deter people from coming. Like everyone knows it's hard to get into Europe and they do it anyway. Like anyway, that's probably a bit.